On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Death Below by August Burns Red. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And we're coming into this episode with some energy, I guess.
Some serious energy, it looks like. Yeah.
We like metal. We like to talk about it. And today we're going to be talking about the newest album from American metalcore band August Burns Red. Came out back in March. And they're a band that I have listened to a lot in my life.
Sure.
But very little over the last 5 or 6 so years. I fell off with them at some point during college, and every album they put out in the interim, I was just like, I think I listened to the album they put out in 2018, 17 or 18. I listened to that album probably like one time through and I was like, that was pretty good. And then I didn't ever listen to it again and completely missed one album. And then this album kept popping up on my Spotify feed and I was like, you know what? Let's see what they're up to today. And I'm glad I decided to give it a chance.
Right.
Because this is a very well made album. And I enjoyed my time with it.
So much so you busted in while I was doing my classic rock show.
Just the first song caught me so by surprise.
The second track, I assume.
The second track, yeah. They're all of the songs are fairly seamless from one to the other, so it's very hard to tell where one ends and another begins. The whole album is kind of one big piece. But like the atmosphere of those first couple of tracks really took me by surprise. And so I was like, I know what we're talking about this week, and here's why. Because I just totally did not expect that from them, at least, according to my memories of them. And the more I have listened to this album, the more I go like, oh no, this if I had gone back and listened to some of their earlier stuff before I listened to this, I feel like it wouldn't have been nearly as unexpected. But because there's a lot of elements on here that are like, they've been incrementally building on throughout their entire careers, but they've always been there throughout a lot of their albums. Some of the weirder, more out there elements have just been bumped up. There's more of a progressive element to this album than there has been on some of their previous work that I've listened to anyway. I've missed a couple of albums. But we'll talk more about August Burns Red a bit later on. First, how are you this day?
I'm doing good. Well, you'll note that we didn't do this last week.
Yes.
Obviously, because I went to Mesa, Arizona and gave a child away.
How dare you? For how much?
I did not get a dowry. I guess it would have been me giving the dowry, wouldn't have?
Yes, that's how that works, I believe. Yes, your oldest daughter got married.
Yeah, she did. She's 28. She got married on her and her fiance, well, now husband's 6th anniversary of dating.
Oh, that's nice.
They've been together 6 years, and
on the anniversary, that's always nice. It's cute.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's fun. That's good. Did you have just a good trip in general? You were down there for a while.
I was. Well, it's because we don't have flights out of here to Mesa during summer months. We had to drive to Bismarck, and there's only 2.
Nobody leaves North Dakota for Arizona in the summer.
Yeah, that'd be dumb.
Tons and tons of people
go to Vegas.
Thousands of people, and thousands of people leave for Arizona in the winter.
Sure.
But not during the summertime.
Yeah,
that would be unwise.
It wasn't too bad, and I looked at temperatures, and it wasn't too much different in Mesa than it was here.
That's not bad. Well, Mesa's up high, isn't it?
Well, Mesa's a bedroom community for Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
You're thinking of Flagstaff.
I'm thinking of Flagstaff. You're absolutely right.
It was great.
Oh, that's good.
I was there for with Wednesday night. I got in and then came back Monday at noon.
Nice.
Fun story. I had to go, walk my child, Abby, down the aisle.
Yes.
And it was about 15 minutes until that was going to be. Did I tell you the story?
I don't think so.
About 15 minutes before I'm supposed to do that. and I'm noticing all the bridesmaids are hopping around because there's fucking a mosquito problem in the atrium that we were in. Mm-hmm. And then I see that with my eyes. With my ears, I hear the groom and one of the groomsmen talking about how, what the hell were we thinking? 3 cheese tortellini and lasagna. We are both severely lactose intolerant. what the hell is going on? And I turned to the best man named Matt, and I said, Matt, Walgreens, now! so he sped off to the drugstore, got a whole bunch of Deepwoods off and a big box of Lactaid
There
pills.
you go.
Quick, get back. And
Quick thinking.
Yeah, but it was like, we got up to the counter and I bought them. He just shits in because I didn't buy a card. I'm bad at that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I got a Walgreens $25 for the married couple. Here you go. Something from dad. And she has to scratch the label off so she can scan it. And she, with her thumb, real slow. And I'm just like,
no one in CVS has ever been in a hurry.
Well, it was 7 minutes until the thing began. So me and Matthew there kind of going,
come on, let's get this moving. Like I said, no one in CVS has ever been in a hurry.
Well, it was Walgreens
for anything.
The same thing.
Oh, Walgreens. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. They're basically the same thing.
Right.
Walgreens. See, and at a drugstore, things move slower there.
They do.
It's like the American South. Drugstores are much like the American South in many ways. I'm sure you'll find. I can't tell you about them right now, or else they'd have to kill me.
Sure.
But I'm glad that the gambit paid off there.
Yeah, it was a good time.
You saved the evening, at least for some of the groomsmen.
Yes, we sprayed the ladies and lactated the boys.
There you go. I guess I can't. The mosquito problem is just something I would not anticipate for Arizona.
Yeah.
But it's also very early in the year. I don't know when it rains in Arizona.
I mean, it does sometimes.
On occasion. But
it is a desert, though.
Yeah.
And a lot of great food down there, too.
It's good.
So much so that, everything had chamoy on it that I hate, which is just this sort of fruity, salty, sweet sauce with spices and stuff in it. And I had to come and try to make it myself, which I did.
Fruity, say all the words again.
Fruity, salty, sweet. It's like fruity, Mexican salty. Sweet and sour sauce.
Okay, I was gonna
essentially is what it is.
The salty part threw it off, but in my head I was like, that sounds like all the same things as salsa.
Yeah, only it's there's no chunks. It's
yes.
I use my immersion blender.
You used your immersion blender.
I did.
Look at you justifying that purchase. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you had a good trip.
Yeah, it was a good time. My the youngest children and both my ex-wives were there.
Well, there you go.
So that was
that all went well.
That went well. I mean, yeah, they're mature women.
Yes,
I'm not saying they're old. What I'm saying is that they're
mature.
They're mature.
Women.
In fact, if you want to do a search for them,
just type that into your URL.
Right.
See what that gets you.
Probably them. No.
No.
So what did you do this last weekend?
Nothing. That's not true. I went to yet another remote broadcast at a furniture store.
Mm-hmm. The same furniture store.
The very same one. And there's yet another this weekend. I have not been told or asked if I am attending that one.
Is it the furniture store this weekend, or is it a different thing this week? I think it's a different
the furniture store this weekend.
It is the furniture store again?
Then it'll be the different thing the week after that.
Gotcha.
It's 3 weeks in a row.
Because I won't be here this weekend either.
Yes, so it's either me or our boss that's going to be handling the board on that.
Jeffrey won't be around? Oh, Jeffrey's going to be out there.
It's a 2-station remote.
Right.
Again, all of them have been, or not 2-station.
3 stations.
3 stations, 2 buildings. Mm-hmm. It's a 3-station remote again, which requires 4 people out of our company of how many? How many of?
Like 5.
Yeah.
I think there's 5 of us.
At least for the people who are capable of performing the duties required of this remote. Yes. 5
duties.
But yeah, so we'll see. I don't know how that's going to go. But I did that. over the weekend, and then played Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure. Oh yeah, I know, and I missed.
You missed the session that I ran.
I know there were spiders.
There were spiders.
Yeah.
There was a robot spider.
Nice.
There was a scary demon. So yeah, there was some stuff that happened.
I didn't die, did I?
Yeah, you died.
All right.
And nobody cared. Your character died, and everyone was like,
That's going to be my eulogy, by the way.
"Oh no, no."
OJ, you died, and no one cared.
Time to start shoveling. No, everything went fine.
Right.
I've been playing a lot of Bloodborne, as one might expect.
How are you liking it? I mean, you seemed like lukewarm about it the last time I talked to you.
Well, that was because I was in the first 3 hours of a FromSoft game before it's fun.
Sure. Now it's gotten fun.
Like every the only exception to this rule in the FromSoft games I have played is Elden Ring.
Right.
Where like Elden Ring starts out you get out of the opening dungeon, and you step out into the world, and it's like, oh,
and it's
beautiful, and you can go anywhere you want, and it's gorgeous, and everything is so amazing to look at, and wonderful and colorful.
Right.
That's not every other FromSoft game.
That's no other FromSoft game, really. I guess Sekiro is kind of...
I mean, Sekiro takes place in beautiful Japan,
Sure.
and I'm sure there's lots of lovely cherry blossoms and whatnot. Every other FromSoft game I have played it is just ugly and like I mean, good graphics or decent, well utilized graphics, I think, is the best thing I can say about FromSoft games for their time periods. Is their graphics are not necessarily good, but they're well utilized.
Demon Souls came out in 1985.
Yeah. But in any case, like, they're all like Bloodborne, more so than I think every other FromSoft game, has such a incredibly dingy and depressing color palette, because it's all just gray stone and black metal. It's Victorian England, but so everything is spiked wrought iron, big Gothic cathedrals, and blood, tons and tons and tons and tons of blood.
And there's no daytime.
The game starts out in evening and it gets darker from there. So it's just, a really oppressive atmosphere, and you are really, really limited off the bat in where you can go. Bloodborne has the same sort of design ethos for its map as Dark Souls 1 did, where everything you can get anywhere from almost anywhere else. But everything is interconnected. It is not a linearly constructed map, the way that like Dark Souls 3 has a very linear map. This area connects to this area, which connects to this area, all in sequence. Whereas Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1, everything is this big jumbled mess of shortcuts that you can take between places. There's there's 5 ways you can get back into Central Yharnam. It's a whole big mess. But it takes a while for you to start unraveling that Gordian knot. And it's frustrating until you get to the point where things start to open up. It can get frustrating, and there's a point that I've gotten to the last couple of nights where things truly open up. There's a boss called Vicar Amelia, and after you kill her, there's like 2 separate there's 2 separate paths on the map that you can take, and then there is another one that takes you to like a different realm that you can also. There's like 3 big new areas that you can explore.
Nice. Vicar Amelia turns into like a big monster or something.
Yeah. That's every boss.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You walk in and she's praying, and then she turns into a big horrifying deer werewolf.
Right.
That's every boss in the first half of the game is like, oh look, a guy. Oh no, it's a giant horrible werewolf.
Right.
And like I'm getting close to the point where I'm getting into the point where if I had no idea about Bloodborne, I would start to understand like what this game is, because if you go into playing Bloodborne with no understanding of what it's actually about, and you play for the first 10 hours, you're like, oh, this is a game about fighting these like weird people have this like weird werewolf disease that's turning them into like wolves or other kinds of monsters or animals and that sort of thing. And that's what that's about. And then you get into a little bit further into the game and you start seeing all this shit about like the eldritch truth and secret knowledge. And you run into these weird like little alien dudes in the forest. And you're like, what the fuck are these? Because it's actually a cosmic horror game. It's not the gothic Victorian horror where it's all werewolves and vampires and stuff. No,
it's a cosmic horror game.
This is H.P. Lovecraft got up in there.
I feel like Miyazaki likes Lovecraft.
Oh yeah,
quite a bit
for sure. And it's like there's been cosmic horror elements in almost every Miyazaki game that I've played.
Like, what's the name of the cosmic horror in Elden Ring? What's his name?
Oh, Astel.
Yeah, Astel.
And there's like even like Scarlet Rot, the entity, not like the disease, the entity Scarlet. Just the whole concept of outer gods is a very Lovecraft thing, even if each of the individual ones is not, what we associate with Lovecraftian gods, where it's, a betentacled fish thing. The whole concept is pretty eldritch in nature.
I mean, there are betentacled fish things.
That's true. There are those as well.
But they're not gods. Yeah.
And some of that, like, much has been made about how much of a Berserk fan Miyazaki is. But like there's a lot of that in Berserk as well. There's a really big like Lovecraftian horror faction, I guess, they're actually very similar to like Cenobites from Hellraiser.
Right.
Is the God Hand, who are the main villains of the whole franchise. They're apparently, did that new Hellraiser thing come out? I think it was a movie. I think it was on Hulu.
I heard about it, but I didn't.
I remember hearing it was pretty good.
Really?
It was a somewhat more faithful adaptation of the book.
Really?
And I remember hearing it was pretty good.
Cool.
I think it's out. I think it came out. But
well, I assume what's his name? The director wasn't involved because he's dead.
Clive Barker?
Well, yeah, Clive Barker. Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bloodborne. I'm thoroughly enjoying it now. Like I'm to the point where things are much less frustrating than they were, and are now just regular FromSoft game level of frustrating, which is to say, regularly as I'm playing it, I will go, what the fuck? That's fucking bullshit. Fuck you. Oh, thanks, Miyazaki. Like one of my favorite things that I've seen from a video is there's a channel called Video Game Donkey, and he has like a video about Dark Souls, and there's like a compilation of him dying, and every time just flat he goes, thank you, Dark Souls. And that I feel like saves me from certain levels of rage where just bullshit happens, and instead of like yelling, I'll go, thank you, Bloodborne, thank you, that was very nice, that was very fair to have happen. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the trick weapons. I've got the saw spear, which is a really cool, like, I like the concept of trick weapons where you can, unfurl them as part of an attack and then, swing them back up. And it's really, the whole gameplay system is really dynamic. It's so much more fast than Dark Souls and Elden Ring. Like it's really... it's really energetic by comparison, which I enjoy. And speaking of FromSoft and energetic stuff, I've seen some gameplay for the new Armored Core game that's coming out, and it looks nuts. It looks absolutely insane. And I'm like watching, the mechs move around in 3-dimensional space because, you'll always have like some sort of aerial movement option. And I'm just thinking like, how is this game going to control? What is the control scheme going to be like? Because for some reason in my head, so much of the entire genre of mech games is for some reason really entangled in my head with having a absolutely indecipherable control scheme.
Okay.
I don't know why that is. I don't know how that idea got in there and why it's so rooted, but for some reason in my head, it's like, oh, this is going to be just so difficult to actually control. But once you figure it out, you're going to be really good at it. But it seems like it's going to have a really a game that you wouldn't think would have a super dense control scheme that does, like Red Dead Redemption 2.
Sure. Yeah, that actually, yeah.
An obscenely obtuse control scheme.
And you're not a mech.
And you're just a cowboy.
Yeah.
To quote Jacob Geller, you're the world's busiest cowpoke. There's always shit Arthur's got to go and do. But
it's because I've got a plan, Arthur.
I've got a plan, Arthur. But yeah, the new Armored Core game looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
You know, I guess I've really only played one mech game, and that's Destiny 2, I think.
I wouldn't say that counts as a mech game.
You wouldn't say that counts as a mech game?
When do you get inside a big robot in Destiny 2? That's what a mech game is.
Am I thinking of Destiny 2? Yeah.
Are you thinking of Titanfall 2?
Maybe I'm thinking of Titanfall 2.
That's the whole shtick in Titanfall is you get into a big robot.
Right. What the hell is Destiny 2?
Destiny is by Bungie. I don't think you've ever even played Destiny. I don't remember you ever having talked about playing Destiny.
Max has it.
Okay.
So
Destiny is like a first-person shooter, semi-MMO. Okay. Where you go and do like raids and whatnot. Like I don't know exactly how to describe what Destiny is. That was kind of the whole point when the series started, is Bungie was like, we're doing this thing that combines a first-person shooter with an MMO where you and your friends go through this persistent online world and that sort of thing. It's Halo meets World of Warcraft is essentially what the most base way I could describe what Destiny is.
I could have swore there was...
You're almost certainly talking about Titanfall 2 because I remember remember when I played it.
Yes,
we talked about it for a while and how cool it is.
Yes,
like the time travel mission is so fucking awesome. Yeah, every single mission in Titanfall 2 is so fucking cool. Like each mission has like a gimmick of some kind, and it's always awesome. I wish like hell Respawn would make another Titanfall game. Like Apex Legends is in the same universe, but it's not a Titanfall game. I want another Titanfall game.
I played Apex Legends a lot too.
Yeah. I want another one. They're too busy making Star Wars games, I guess. But yeah, I want another Titanfall game. It's been you can't not do that, right? Titanfall 2 came out, I think, in 2015.
Really?
I think it came out in 2015, the same week or same day as Battlefield 1, which is mind-boggling to me because they were both EA games. Why the fuck would EA do that? Like,
why would they compete with themselves?
Yeah, why compete with themselves, especially when Titanfall 2 is so fucking awesome?
That would be like having two hot country stations in the same broadcast area.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. One does play a lot more classic country than the other.
That's true. And appeals to the farm crowd a little more.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
That was inside reference from our workplace.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bloodborne's about the only thing that I've been doing lately of any particular note, I would say.
And I spent a week on the 12th story of a Marriott hotel.
There you go.
That was great.
I am excited. How was the hotel, by the way?
It's fantastic.
Anything else to say about the hotel?
They had a great pool, and apparently there was some sort of college, like I don't even know, some sort of maybe a debate summer something computer whatever, and so there were these. What
was the acronym? Do you know was there an acronym associated with the event?
I don't know anything about the event. All I know is that like 20-something girls in bikinis talked a lot about what they were going to be doing. And so it was me just making eye contact with my 12-year-old son in the pool a lot.
We're only going... See, See, when you first said that before you're like 20 something, I was like, maybe it was the national speech and debate thing, but that would be high schoolers.
Yeah, these were definitely
adults.
I hope they were. Yeah. I'm at that age now where I can. Are you 12 or are you 30? I don't know.
Who can tell? All you youngins look the same to me.
I just want to give you some candy
and get you on your way.
You go. Behave now, kiddo.
The other something that I have not done, but I will be doing. Tomorrow, there's a new season that's coming out for Deep Rock Galactic. New seasonal content is being dropped, and I'm excited to get to that tomorrow.
Is that? Do you have to be multiplayer with that game, or can you?
You don't have to. You can play solo, but it is really designed to be played with other people.
Right.
Like you and the way that solo play works is pretty well constructed. Like it plays well as a solo game, but it is meant to be a co-op game.
Gotcha.
Very much so. And it's got a pretty good its online community is pretty good. Like people, because it's a co-op game and there's not really there are some co-op games that have a lot of like individual objectives for your character and your class that you're playing, and people can get really upset if you somehow fuck it up for them. Like that's a big problem with the Dark Tide, which is Warhammer 40K game that came out in November. Like people are trying to like grind experience and get new cool things for their character, but it requires fulfilling objectives and doing challenges that the other players can completely unknowingly fuck up for you. And people get very upset when you do that, and you're like, I'm just playing my mission. I'm sorry I didn't know you were doing this thing. Like it's that's really frustrating, and in my opinion kind of bad design. Deep Rock really gets it right, where it's very hard to in that way mess things up for other players. If you're just really bad at the game and constantly dying and, people have to come rescue you and they die and the mission fails, then you're messing things up for people. But
sure. But you have to really fuck up.
Yeah. Generally, people tend not to be super toxic as long as you are not acting like an asshole and being annoying and constantly getting the group in trouble. Then you'll be okay.
All right.
I'm going to move her little cat stand back because she is going to put her paws on the back of my chair.
It's going to irritate you.
It's going to irritate.
So he's going over there and he's moving the cat stand. Oh, and she's confused by the whole movement thing, and she's evacuating the cat stand.
Because she's going to put her claws on the back of my nice leather chair, and that would really make me mad.
We're losing our headphones. There we go. Got it back.
We got it back.
Mortimer, we're back.
Chewie, we're home. Let's talk about August Burns Red.
Sure.
So August Burns Red is an American metalcore band from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was founded in 2003. So they've been around for 20 years at this point. They've had a very consistent lineup for 17 of those 20 years. It's all been the same members of the band.
Sure.
The last lineup change that they underwent was a change of bassist. Let me look at the page really quick, which
Crane
is
your
away
neck to
from
the
my
left
microphone. That would be when, let's see, they changed bassists from Josh McCannis to Dustin Davidson, who's been with them ever since. In the same year as when Jake Lurs, the vocalist, joined the band. They went through a couple of different vocalists in their early years, but Jake and Dustin have stayed with them ever since. So the band lineup is lead guitarist JB Brubaker, rhythm guitarist Brent Rambler, drummer Matt Grenier, I'm not sure, and then vocalist Jake Lurs and bassist Dustin Davidson.
Grenier.
Yeah, they've been making music together in total for 20 years, all of them together the same 5 for the last 17 years.
Wow.
And for most of that time, they have kind of been at the top of the pile when it comes to metalcore bands.
Sure.
I remember when I first started getting into this kind of music in about 2012, 2013, they were always kind of they were in that pack of bands that everyone was like, these are the big bands of metalcore, and of a certain metalcore of a certain generation as well. These guys alongside like Architects and there's an Australian band called Parkway Drive were kind of like a big sort of a big three of this of their sort of generation of like people who were teenagers in the early 2000s.
Gotcha.
I think is that sort of generation. Older millennials, I suppose, is what it would be, because the members of the band now are all in their late 30s.
Approaching 40.
Yeah, fast approaching 40. And so of that generation, these guys were kind of always front runners, and they have remained that way. And this album, I think, was a really nice sort of treat in the sense that there are some times when there is a band that I have not listened to in a long time, and I'm like, hey, they've got a new album. Why don't I check that out and see what I've been missing? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I really don't like the direction that they've taken. And other than like that first song, which I came to you with, and I was like, wow, this is so crazy. I wouldn't have expected this from them. After that, it was like, oh, they're still doing it.
Right.
Like they have seemingly seen no real reason to change things up in any sort of massive way, which I think a number of their contemporaries have at certain points, and I don't care for it at all. What I've heard from the most recent Architects album, I didn't really like. I haven't liked anything Parkway Drive has put out since about 2017.
Or Driveway Park.
Yeah. So like from their generation, it kind of feels like they're the only guys that are not only still going strong, but still making the same kind of music that they always have. It's the production is cleaner, the musicianship is tighter, it's more advanced, the riffs are better, but ultimately it's the same sort of formula of the same style, the same type of metalcore that they've always been making, which I think is really commendable. They're just like, we're gonna keep just making this good stuff, and it's gonna be similar to what you've heard before. We're not changing things up massively. We're not drastically changing the style. Sure. It's kind of like Cannibal Corpse in a way. Where like every Cannibal Corpse album, the biggest change that you will hear is just the production getting better.
Right. And AC/DC.
AC/DC. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Don't go, chasing. I feel like in metalcore, especially, every attempt that bands have made to sort of chase after a bigger, more accessible audience has met either with financial failure or with artistic failure.
Right. Or both. The like only exception to that rule that I can think of is Bring Me the Horizon, which has sort of, kind of broken through to being sort of a more of like a pop emo of this generation anyway, type band, which is still crazy to me, because if you go back and listen to their first album, it is just the nastiest and sloppiest deathcore that like they sound so different now, and it's just kind of, I don't know. Their whole trajectory as a band has been kind of weird. Right.
But like every other band that I can think of, their attempts to be more commercially accessible have just been met with failure and dissatisfaction. They didn't get the bigger audience that they wanted, and all of their previous fans are dissatisfied with the direction that they've taken.
Right.
That's not the case with August Burns Red. When I looked at the Reddit reviews for this, or at least the discussion thread for this album, a lot of the comments were like, well, this sure is an August Burns Red album. And for me, having missed a couple of albums, I'm like, that's a problem. Why? Why is that a problem? Like people were saying that as if it was a problem. And there were people responding to that being like, what did you expect them to sound like? Era? Like, no, they are them. They're not, doing anything wildly out of character for them, and they're doing what they do and doing it very, very fucking well. But I was very happy to hear that they're still recognizably them in a way that doesn't sound lazy,
right?
Ever. They are, as I understand, a pretty new band to you. So I'd like to hear some of your thoughts. This having been your first real experience with them.
Right. I like this kind of thing. I like it. I like the intensity of it, and I like the dynamics. I like the fact that they do a lot of like interludal stuff, like some of their tracks between songs are like just sort of like a palate cleanser.
Yes.
Those they do that quite a bit.
Yes.
And I also like the fact that it's a seamless effort.
Yeah.
Like, everything goes into the next thing. And in fact, if for some reason you hit to the next track or whatever, oops, shit, you hear the last note of the previous track at the beginning of the next line. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
If you're not on a particularly good internet connection, it might sound a little jarring.
Yeah.
If you can't manage your streaming player can't manage sort of seamless transitions from one track to the next, it might sound a little weird.
Mm-hmm. I like a lot of the he's very emotional. There's a lot of very, very personal lyrics in here.
Very personal lyrics, and Jake uses like his whole range, from he has what I would call a very sort of hoarse style of voice, whether it's no matter where in his vocal range he's going, and it's all screamed vocals. But
he does some singing on here, like sing.
That wouldn't be Jake.
That's not Jake.
I mean, he does some like very gruff melodic vocals, but
they're not guest vocalists on here.
Yeah,
don't they? Yeah, that's right.
They have a number of guest vocalists. The first one being Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage,
right?
Which that's probably the most prominent clean vocals on the album. Later on, there's also a little bit of clean singing on the last track from Spencer Chamberlain.
Right, that's who I was hearing.
Who is the vocalist of a band called Under Oath. But
that song is called The Reckoning.
The Reckoning, yes.
I love that song.
That's there's a lot of what I would call, I think this album is in general like darker in tone than a lot of stuff that they have made. There's a lot of kind like semi-apocalyptic vibes to this that I would describe. And I think a large portion of that is because it's coming out post-COVID. Putting together all the things that they were writing and thinking about and feeling throughout that period, that's naturally going to sort of come out in there. But August Burns Red has, I think, for most of their career been what is sometimes somewhat derisively referred to as a hopecore band.
Yeah.
In the sense that they tend to focus on lyrics that are going to instill some sense of hope for the future.
There's less of that here.
There's a little bit less of that here.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not gone. Like, especially, those first two tracks, it's, a very ominous opener, sort of transitioning from spoken word up into screamed vocals, and then this very long, like progressive, winding song that's all very dark, and there's like big like genuinely like blackened blast beats and guitars, and then suddenly in the last like 2 minutes there's this truly insane key change, and it goes from being this incredibly dour apocalyptic song to, I mean, it's kind of it feels like what I know about the Book of Revelation, right? Like the Book of Revelation is some absolutely wild, insane, fucked up shit, and then but don't worry everybody, after the world ends everything will be perfect and wonderful. There's some sort of vibe of that. And after all of this sort of, talking about, kind of, again, these apocalyptic sort of lyrics, the line that comes back is, we will mend. The world is not great, but we can do something to fix it. And that's the first track on the album. And there's, like you said, very personal lyrics going into personal struggle and trying to deal with, setting boundaries for yourself and like all these, sorts of things come up every once in a while. But I would say in general, things remain more sort of on the positive side as far as the lyrics go. But, you know, endless positivity is just, it's too much. It's gross without
Right.
like it's overly saccharine if you don't have some darkness to temper it with.
Right.
You know, I think it's a very Catholic thing to think. Like, I was not raised Catholic, but as I understand, it's a very Catholic thing to think like, you know, oh, you're happy. Well, you got to have the bad times too for the happiness to mean anything.
You better feel guilty about that happiness.
Yep.
Yeah.
The bad times are just around the corner.
Right.
So hold on to these. But like, yeah, I believe that in music where I think things, you know, tonally tend to be a bit more bearable.
Right.
On both ends of the spectrum. If you're making something that is extremely dark, including a little something that's maybe not necessarily more lighter, but something that's at least more bittersweet.
Right. It's like a great philosopher once said, without stuff that sucks, you can't have stuff that's cool.
Exactly. And it's, you know, who said that, by the way?
Butthead.
Butthead. All right. Very poignant of
Yeah.
this must be an ancient Greek philosopher.
Falafel. Yeah. Ooh, that sounds good.
Ancient Greek falafeler. I like to think of myself as a bit of a falafeler.
Falafeler.
Couldn't even say it. Couldn't even say my own joke. But in the same way that a little bit of something bittersweet makes something that's incredibly depressing a lot more bearable. Something that is maybe a little darker, a little more frightening or upsetting makes something that is more lighthearted, a bit more
three-dimensional.
More three-dimensional, yeah. Like my favorite comedies are ones that have some very depressing moments. Like,
sure.
like Scrubs, for example. Scrubs is throughout almost the entirety of it a very lighthearted show.
Very
my
funny.
favorite episodes of Scrubs are the times when things get very dark. And it's almost shocking how well they pull it off.
Where do you think we are?
Oh, God. Or when Dr. Cox walks out of the hospital after they've like lost a bunch of patients.
Right.
And then he comes back the next episode and he comes to work drunk and like JD's pissed at him. And like those episodes are so good.
Right.
Or like when they had, now I'm just talking about good episodes of Scrubs. The episodes where, oh no, why can't I remember? Oh, why? I can't remember his name. Michael Fox.
Oh, sure.
An episode where Michael J. Fox was a guest star. And like the end of that episode hits really hard as well. Some things that you find out about his character because he's got, you know, obsessive compulsive disorder. And he's not having a good time underneath being seemingly a perfect doctor. But yeah, like, anyway, Scrubs is a good show. Go watch Scrubs.
August Burns Red.
Burns Red. Does Death Below slap?
Yeah, it does.
I think it absolutely slaps. Something that popped into my head is hearing Jesse Leach's voice made me realize that I haven't listened to a Killswitch Engage album in a really long time, and maybe that should be the next thing on my list to be like, what has Killswitch Engage been up to lately? And I did also like hearing JT Cavy's voice. Cavey or Cavy? I can't remember how it's
Cavity.
To be. Yeah. He's the screaming vocalist for Era as well.
Oh, sure.
Which they've remained in my heavy rotation after we, you know, talked about their most recent album last year sometime. I was like, oh, I'm going to just keep listening to these guys a lot because, you know, I'm like with August Burns Red, I missed a couple of albums and then I listened to their new thing. I was like, oh, okay, this is what they've been up to. So for scores, putting together 7 different reviews, came out to 82.8, which is pretty solid. Most of the reviews were 80s or 90s. There was 160 in there. But even then, like reading through that review, that was one of those cases of like, this is, a 60 is above a 50. It's positive. Like, they weren't very hard on the album, but they're like, it was also not, the greatest thing we ever heard. So
sure.
There's kind of a range, depending upon the reviewer, of what anything above a 50 actually means. We've talked about that before,
right.
like how useless numbered rating systems are for video games,
right?
At least if it's coming from IGN.
If it's coming from IGN and it gets an 80, or it gets an 8 out of 10,
it's a piece of shit.
It's a complete piece of shit.
Don't touch that game with a 10-foot pole. What's your favorite song on this album?
I think the closing track gets really math rocky.
Oh yeah,
in there.
Oh yeah,
and it really is one that really caught my attention.
Yeah,
I was making some sauce on a stove tonight. I'm like, what the holy shit?
And that's something that they've always been capable of, and put in every once in a while. I think their shtick throughout almost all of their career that I'm familiar with has been to never be too predictable. Never settle in too much. Like I've talked about how they're still doing what they've always been doing. But what they've always been doing has been, don't settle in too deep into one particular specific style. Like, their formula is always throw in a little something extra, is how I would describe it.
They're not inconsistent by any means.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. They do throw in a little tinge of this here and a little tinge of that there.
Off of their 2015 album, Found in Faraway Places, my favorite track on that album is a song called Identity, which actually got nominated for a Grammy that year.
Really?
And in Identity, the guitar solo is fucking surf rock. It has a surf rock guitar solo in it, and it's awesome. Yes, it was fucking amazing. I love that song, and it's the exact sort of thing of they're not afraid to be a little playful now and then, and they're part of their ethos seems to be, at least from their last decade of material, always throw in a little something extra to the song to make it a bit different and make it stand out.
Like the song Savink, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's just an instrumental.
It's just an instrumental sort of interlude, like you'd hear it in a grocery store almost.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
For my favorite, there's a trio of songs in the middle of the album that they all go so fucking hard. Like Reckoning is amazing.
Yeah.
And I kind of made a conscious decision not to choose Reckoning because that's normally what I would do. It's it's the last track. It's long. It's got all kinds of cool stuff in it. Of course I would choose that. So I kind of made a conscious decision to pick from somewhere else in the album, and I couldn't make a clear choice, but it is a cluster of songs that are all next to each other. It's Tightrope, Fool's Gold, and The Bear Trap, and Backfire.
Right. All
three of those songs go so fucking hard. Wow, I'm getting a phone call, and the ID says telemarketer. I've never seen that.
What network are you on? You on?
I believe I'm on AT&T.
You're on AT&T?
Yeah.
It's now gotten to the point where they're like, that's a telemarketer.
That's incredible. I've never seen that before where it just says telemarketer. Well, at least they're honest. But yeah, Tightrope, Fool's Gold, Backfire, all really cool. There's a cool section. If you notice, the guitar solo in Tightrope sounds a little different. That's because it wasn't JB. It was Jason Richardson. That's the guest, not a guest vocalist, guest guitarist. Nice. Jason Richardson is known for doing a variety of technical death metal stuff. He used to play guitar in a band called Born of Osiris. He was actually in there pretty briefly, but they were a technical deathcore band. Then he played for Chelsea Grin for an album. And since then he's just been doing solo stuff, just freelance, really talented guitarist.
So he's the James Murphy of technical death metal.
I don't know enough to say yes, but I will trust you and say yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Who's James Murphy?
He's the James Murphy of death metal. In 1991, he played in both Obituary's album and Death's album that year.
Okay.
He was the lead guitar player.
But yeah, those three songs, I just and it's another one of those things where it's like they like Tightrope and Fool's Gold especially really lead into each other. They feel so linked.
They do that with like themes on here. You'll have like the song I mentioned, that Savink or whatever.
Yeah.
So that theme shows up again in Dark Divide.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a callback to the previous song.
I love that shit.
Yeah.
I love when bands do that shit. Even like lyric callbacks too. Like that's part of the reason why I love the Wonder Years so much is they do that constantly. But yeah, there's a lot that I really like about this album. What metal are you bestowing upon Death Below like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca?
I truly enjoyed this album. I'm giving it a high silver because I need to listen to it more than once to be able to confirm it gold.
I got to agree with you there.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel myself like deeply compelled to be like, oh, now I'm gonna go back through August Burns Red's entire discography and listen to everything again.
Right.
I probably will go back through a couple of their albums that I'm like most familiar with. The album before this one, Guardians, as I understand, people were a bit less satisfied with that one and have kind of considered this one a little bit of a return to form. But Phantom Anthem, I know people liked. And then before that was Found in Faraway Places, which I listened to and loved. So if I'm going back to any of their previous albums, it's going to be that one.
Sure.
But yeah, I will probably go back and listen to this more again, but it didn't like grab me so deeply that it was like, oh yes, it was kind of that thing of like, oh yeah, I still like this, but they haven't like clawed their way into being like one of my favorite bands suddenly. Like there was like maybe a little bit of a reason why I sort of fell off with them of like, I like this, but it doesn't compel me super deeply. And it's good. It's again, high silver for me as well. This is a fantastic album. It's very well made and I will listen to more of it again, but it didn't hit quite perfectly with me. The way that like Era's newest album, that album hit perfectly for me. This one didn't quite do that, but it is still amazing. It's really good. Very much recommend that y'all listen to it.
Give it a spin.
If you like any this kind of music at all,
put it on your turntable and you got to crank it up and
put it in your 8-track player. Did I say 8-track? That's what they were called, weren't they?
Yeah, there were 8 tracks.
For some reason in my head, it's a track.
No, it's 8-track.
8-track. Yeah, you're right.
Start up your iRock and listen to some.
Put it in your Walkman, your Sony Walkman device.
I actually have 2 of those.
You have 2 Walkmans?
I have a Walkman MP3 player and I have a Walkman cassette player.
Oh,
I do.
Interesting. So next week, what can we put in our Walkman cassette players?
I thought we probably should talk about this because I brought it up the other day and I want to give it a listen. We might not care for this album.
That's promising.
But I want to give it a listen. I want to give them a fair shot because, they're a legendary band.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about the album that came out in September of 2022, Opus Contra Naturum by Behemoth.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, you mentioned that the other day, the new Behemoth album, New West Behemoth album.
Yes.
It's not that new anymore, but sure. I'll be willing to give it a try. I know, like, I liked the last Behemoth album we talked about, but
it was a good album.
Then you came in the other day to talk about this one and seemed much less sure about it.
Yeah.
So that gives me pause as well, because if you have much broader and more forgiving taste in music than I do, so if you don't like it, then I probably won't like it as well.
So one thing that happens to me a lot, especially like in the metal world, I will hear something and I will go, I don't know. Yeah. And then it will go one of 2 ways. Yeah. It'll go, no, this sucks. Or I'll listen to it a couple of times and be like, today, this is my favorite fucking thing in the world.
Yeah.
I remember that happened to me back in 1986. 1986, I bought 2 cassettes at a place called Musicland in was it Musicland or Music City? Music City is what it was called in the Philippines. It was in Engeli City.
Okay.
And I'd heard a lot about this band and I listened to it like, I don't understand why people like this. You see people with the t-shirts and the posters all over the place. I don't know how to feel about it. And I listened to it a few more times and then I was a huge fan of Iron Maiden. So
that's how it happens.
Yeah, I don't care for this. And then I really loved it.
So next week, Behemoth, be he man or be he moth.
He's Mothman.
He's the Mothman.
And this is his prophecy.
Yes. For some reason, my brain went to Chronicles, but that's Chronicles of Riddick.
Right. Or Narnia.
Or Narnia. There are many things that have Chronicles.
I have some chronic issues myself.
When are they going to make the Mothman Chronicles? All right, time to end this episode. Thanks very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. If you go ahead and find us on social media, we're on Facebook and we're on Twitter. And we post new episode links there when episodes go up, if that's how you prefer to find out that episodes have come out. Otherwise, just subscribe to our feed on whatever it is you are using to listen to us right now, whichever service. Do it right now.
Now.
Do it.
Now.
So thank you for listening to the Bronze Medalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.